We got the CZ457, right? So one of my favorite rifles. This one's equipped with a Huxworks suppressor, right? So really high-end precision rifle. We got the optic here, right? So we're going to start out relatively close, and so we're going to adjust this front objective kind of to our yardage out there. We're about 25 yards. Right here, we don't have to do any mess with that. So for a right-handed shooter, what we'll do is we'll get the gun close to us like this, right? And we have a chamber flag. Chamber flag in here, what this does is it helps prevent the gun from being loaded when it's not time to be loaded, right? So when the red lights are on, we need to make sure that we have this chamber flag in, okay? And so kind of the steps that I do, so the gun's gonna go against my shoulder here, my cheek's gonna go here, and it looks like this. So I can look down, I'm gonna line my crosshairs, you know, with that on the target. And then when it's time, I'm just gonna press that trigger, okay? So one thing to think about is the more movement we have, it's gonna equate to a larger group size, okay? So obviously, elbows on the table, feet flat on the ground if we're okay, if the stool's the right height from us. And we're just gonna try to take our time, right? We're not gonna go fast. Later on today, I will be setting a timer where I'm gonna say 3 minutes, right? So I'll set the timer for 3 minutes, and you guys are gonna go through the entire process without me kind of prompting you. I'm gonna prompt you kind of the first few times so you guys can understand the process. But then you guys are gonna be on your own. And what we'll be doing is we'll be calling these targets. So we'll label the targets, and then we'll just call like an A target, and you guys will shoot the A target, right? And so once we get to that part of the class. So everything's a lot of fun, okay? It's pretty easy process. So the first step I'm gonna do, right, is I'm gonna get this gun into the firing position where it's gonna be close to me, right? My elbows are on the table. My next step is gonna be, I'm gonna pull out this chamber flag. And once I have the chamber flag, I'm gonna set this aside because I'm gonna need this again. What I'll do is I'll take my magazine, I'll seat my magazine in the mag well right here. And then what I'll do is I'll give you a command to load and make ready. So what you'll do is you'll just close that bolt, make sure the gun's on safe, and then your finger is off the trigger just like that, okay? Only time the finger ever goes on the trigger is when I say fire, okay? Because I'm gonna be listening for this, listen to this. Hear that click? That's the safety, okay? The only time I should ever hear the safety click is after I give that command to fire, okay? So when I say fire, that's when you're gonna put the crosshairs on your target like this, and you're gonna push it off safe, and then you'll just press that trigger. The gun will go bang. My next command is gonna be cycle. So you cycle that spent casing out, pick up another round from the magazine, and then you put the gun back on safe, just like that. So pretty easy process. We'll do this probably the first couple times through, and then you guys are gonna be on your own, because the whole point of this class is this is kind of a more advanced class, but I want you guys to kind of go through the same process, right? So the only time my gun is off safe is when my crosshairs are on my target and I'm making that decision to fire, okay? That's the goal. Any questions so far? Okay, so whole point of this class is to not go too fast, okay? Because these like, we can put some clay pigeons down there at 100 yards, and these rifles will hit those clay pigeons no problem. So they're really accurate. The rifles are going to be as accurate as you are, right? So the more movement I have, that's going to equate to a bigger group size. So just something to think about. So when the gun is clear, I'll check the chamber. Once the chamber is clear, I'll put my chamber flag in like that, and I'll drop my magazine and then make sure my gun is on safe, just like that. So pretty easy process. Any questions? So everybody's gonna get a target. We're gonna start off on the paper targets to kind of get the process down, and then we'll move those targets out of the way, and then we'll start shooting the steel targets. I like the steel targets because they're fun, they're reactive, give you that audible ping, okay? One thing we do want to be mindful of is when we're setting up our rifles is we'll just kind of make sure that suppressor's on there tight, because we don't want that to come off, because you can have what's called a baffle strike, where the piece of lead will actually strike somewhere inside the can, and it can cause damage to the can. So we just want to be really mindful of that. So that's all I got. Pretty easy stuff.